History of Geosciences in Liechtenstein by Cyril and Igor, Deicha. Liechtenstein is an alpine country of 160 square kilometers situated in the middle of the Alps. We will describe the history, first the geological history, then the history of human investigation, and we will conclude with a list of useful institutional actors and a short comparison with the neighboring countries. Liechtenstein is an interesting geological variety, and the reference book is Geology Liechtensteins by Daniel Miescher. The geological history begins 315 million years ago, and we find near the Pfälzer Hütte the rock of this very ancient provenance. And we have also rocks which are now in formation, that are the petrifying fountain in Vaduz. The history of human investigation. There are three sorts of human investigation: utilitarian, that means for economic reasons, then scientific, and then for the purpose of outreach. Since the Middle Ages, stone quarries are exploited at several places, and medieval castles were built with this material. Gypsum was extracted in quarries above Miescher and milled in Vaduz Mühlerholz. In 1800, gypsum was Liechtenstein's most important industrial export product. Iron ore was extracted in Valoche until the 17th century, smelted with charcoal, and a small quantity of steel was produced. According to Wikipedia, Liechtenstein has few natural resources, aside from alluvial gravel used by the concrete industry. Gravel extraction from the river interfered with groundwater flows and was banned after 1972. Historically, peat was extracted in the north of the country, but this has also stopped. And the gravel extraction has even caused a bridge collapse. We made this photo in the 70s. Beginning of the 20th century, the construction of new roads, drainage channels, and hydroelectric power stations provided new geological knowledge. The Liechtensteiner Kraftwerke began to work in 1927. A road tunnel was digged in 1947. And there were interesting scientific consequences of these works, because, for instance, crystals with fluid inclusions were discovered in Triesenflisch fissures. They were collected from the dumps of the underground penstock connecting the Steg Reservoir in Samina Valley to the power station in Vaduz. Half a century later, soil drillings were performed to get groundwater, or more recently, to investigate the possibilities of geothermy. The second part of the human investigation is the scientific one. The exploration by foreign geologists began in the 19th century. Due to the smallness of the country, there is no geological nor geographical institute, but individual researchers with foreign scientific affiliation. They do a good work, principally in German, but also in other languages. From time to time, Liechtenstein was represented at international scientific meetings, and that question is not yet completely studied. This is a letter from the chief of government in 1960, which we found in our family archives. As an example, we may evoke the development of the fluid inclusion studies, which were initiated by our father, Georges Deicha, in Paris. Materials from Liechtenstein illustrated the reference book on that matter as early as 1955. Gas and liquid inclusions come from Liechtenstein. The third part is the outreach, and geology as a science was poorly represented in previous years. For instance, in Liechtenstein museums, there are very few exhibits. In the school curricula, basics in geology did not appear among the scientific matters, but together with geographical or environmental items. Nowadays, we can say that there is a trend to develop seriously scientific knowledge, and geosciences are in progress. In the last decades, geology was the theme of several installations in the public space in Malbourne, Bender, and also in Vaduz with this monumental fountain. Each rock comes from one of the villages in the neighborhood. The institutional actors are first association. Interested persons meet and publish in different generalist associations who edit bulletins, also with contribution about earth sciences. But there is no geological, mineralogical, geographical society. Let's cite three of them devoted to history, to alpinism, and to science. First, Historischer Verein für das Fürstentum Liechtenstein. It is the historical association, one of the oldest learned societies, landowner of some historical sites, and editor of an annual bulletin, Jahrbuch des Historischen Vereins. The first study, Geology of Liechtenstein, was issued in the 1950s by this association. The Liechtensteiner Alpenverein is a national mountaineering club, member of the international network Alpine, landowner of 2 mountain huts, and editor of a quarterly bulletin Ancien, an annual report Bergheimat, and it is the editor of the reference book Geologie Liechtensteins by Daniel Miescher. Naturwissenschaftlichen Forum is a Liechtenstein Scientific Society for science outreach and relations to international academic organization, European Physical Society, International Astronomical Union, European Current Research on Fluid Inclusions. Naturwissenschaftliches Forum is the editor of the latest bibliography on history of geosciences. Then there are the different collections. The catalogue of the national museums explains that scientific collections and museums are usually associated with research institutions or carry out the research themselves. However, Liechtenstein does not have its own institute or higher education institution for natural science disciplines. For this reason, the natural history research of the country before 1970 was limited to more or less accidental works. There are some regional collections not limited by the boundaries of the principality. Private collections can be preserved only if the family cares take of them, and that is, for example, the collection in our family. The National Museum, Liechtensteinisches Landesmuseum, principally devoted to the local history and archaeology, has a very small geological exhibition. 9 polished blocks used as seating for the visitors, 3 fossils, and some smaller stones, not even all of local origin. A geological map is edited by the government. It was made by Professor Aleman, who is the author. All literature is available at the National Library. Other governmental actors. Another showroom in the museum is the only sample of lunar rocks in Europe. It's very popular among the tourists, but it is not accessible to scientists because it is in a glass block. There are only 70 geological samples in the Naturkundliche Sammlungen. We noted there are far more numerous artifacts around geology and botanics than geology. The Liechtenstein state also operates an archaeological service who has a certain control of the heritage of hidden treasures in the soil. And now the comparison with the neighbors. The country is embedded in a regional landscape that includes the Swiss cantons St. Gallen and Grisons and the Austrian federal land Vorarlberg. They form together a coherent region of the German-speaking cultural space with strong ties to cities with universities and institutes, for instance, in Innsbruck and Zurich. Most of the field activities, investigation of geologists or geographers, as well as pedagogic excursion of school classes, ignore the national boundaries. And these are the limits of the Alpine Treaty Convention, to which Liechtenstein belongs as a member. The two neighbors are Austria. The geological map of Vorarlberg includes also Liechtenstein, whose upper tectonic layers are an extension of the Austrian Ostalpine. Most regional books and publications are also the Association of Vorarlberg Friends of Nature deal with this subject. In Switzerland, the UNESCO Heritage Tectonic Arena Sardona begins only a few kilometers southwest from the Swiss-Liechtenstein frontier. This large national park, twice the area of Liechtenstein, is a vivid museum of the Alpine geological history. This region is unique in the world. Nowhere else are the results of the process that lead to the formation of mountains as evident as they are here.
Comme mot de la fin pour cet exposé sur les études géologiques sur le Liechtenstein, nous pouvons peut-être citer ce qui s'est passé il y a très peu de temps. Il s'agit d'une secousse sismique qui a rappelé aux Liechtensteinois l'existence de la géologie, l'existence des phénomènes géologiques, et qui a d'autre part été perçue d'une façon absolument extraordinaire au moment d'une session du Parlement qui discutait sur l'introduction d'une assurance habitation pour les séismes. Et le journal Volksblatt du Liechtenstein publie cette photo qui se réfère aussi à une vidéo qui est devenue virale depuis que vous trouverez sur YouTube.
Eine Versicherung lebt von der Solidarität. Das Problem ist nur, wenn sich in Liechtenstein ein starkes Erdbeben ereignet, dann ist die Chance doch sehr hoch, dass sämtliche Einwohnerinnen und Einwohner betroffen sind.
Ich glaube, das war
und es rumpelt im Saal. Somit kann der Solidaritätsgedanke nicht ausgelebt werden. In diesem Zusammenhang dann auch die Frage,
das wird langsam heftig. Ich glaube, man weiß ja nie wegen Nachbeben. Wir machen mal eine Viertelstunde Pause.